everybody. Today we're going to be covering the new hero Crimson Typhoon who has entered the game. So this is another Pacific Rim Jaeger hero and we will cover it now. So with how to get him. So there's actually three different ways you can get him right now. So the first way is to come into your Pacific Rim events, and in the bottom right hand corner you should have a little red dot when you first log in. Click into here, go to his tab, and then down here on the bottom you can click this button and it will obtain him. It'll give you 10 shards. That's all you have to do to obtain him. There are two other ways in case for some reason you don't want to do it the free way. You can come over to the Crimson Typhoon pack and purchase him for 20 US dollars. Or you can come to the Lucky Treasury and spend on average about 3,000 gems doing the 10 times draw to get him. All three ways are feasible, but those are the three ways to get him. And once you get enough shards, you will open him up. You get your little cutscene that we normally get, and then you have him. So next we're going to cover how he works. So basically he is a Navy hero, and he is a skill and I'd say buff hero. So his war and defense are pretty similar, so that won't change much. And how his 5-star skill reads is: after the battle begins, your Navy units gain a 50% HP shield and two 50% heavy armor stacks. Every time after units launch a regular attack, there's a chance to trigger the skill, randomly attacking 3 enemy units, dealing 110% damage to each. If the target has abnormal states, the damage will increase by 20% per abnormal state, up to 60% maximum. And then his exclusive skill: when this hero participates in battle, attack increased by 30%. Level 5 is an extra missile, so 4 missiles at 110%. And then every time after your units launch a regular attack, there's a chance to add a 10% vulnerable to 2 targets. So something else to think of, that he actually will kind of buff himself because those count as abnormal states. And then level 7 is you get the number of missiles of this hero's skill are +2, so you have 5 missiles instead of 4, and the effect of the heavy armor is now an additional 30%. So that's a lot of damage to hold. So basically how his skill works is you're going to get that HP shield, and then you get almost like a chip that if an enemy's skill hits, so say Max hits him, it's going to reduce the amount of damage that does. This is basically, in my mind, kind of the counter to Max for Navy, to kind of tame down how powerful he is towards us. So definitely good. And then on top of it, you get the damage that goes with it. So we'll see. And lastly, we'll cover the March possibilities. So there's kind of a lot of different ways I see him working, and it's going to require a lot of testing. So I put these videos out right away, so I don't have a ton of time to test, but I do want to kind of go over some other things with him. So after doing some initial testing, between all the sand tables and those monsters that are in the game right now and everything like that, he's looking like he's going to trigger about 30-ish% of the time, which is pretty standard for all heroes. They average between 25 to 40%, unless it's like an all the time type of thing or a rage hero. So for the approximation, or the trigger heroes, I should say, they all usually, he falls right in line with that, which means he is going to be an excellent replacement in Navy. There's lots of different possibilities with him, so I'm going to go over what's going to work for me. What works for everybody else is going to depend on what you have and what you have available. So something you definitely want is you need to pair him with some other heroes that have some kind of debuff to the enemy units, whether it's an attack debuff, whether it's they take a vulnerability, so they take extra damage. Anything that you can basically trigger onto their tiles is what helps him do the extra damage. So for me, I'm thinking I'm going to do either Kotia, Layla, and Crimson. Because Kotia gives an attack buff. Yes, her to our side. Yes, her silence does not do a negative or an effect to the enemy. It just works on their hero, so that won't help. But Layla gives those debuffs, which will help Crimson do more damage. I don't think she gives enough, so I'll explain why I might do the second march here in a second. But that's option 1 for me. Option 2, I might possibly even bring back U, just because my U triggers quite often because it has a level 7 skill with her. And that means her rage is always kind of refunneling and she triggers a lot. So I might do a U, Layla, and Crimson, just because then I have that debuff on pretty much every tile and it will always be going off. We'll always get that extra damage. And then kind of my last option is kind of working off of Crimson's level 5 debuff. So obviously I'll always get my level 5 skill. I might pair, it might go Layla, Crimson, Ray, just because then Ray will have 2 people debuffing in front of him, her. I think Ray's a lady in the game, sorry. And then that'll allow her to do more damage. Layla's buffs will debuffs will help Crimson, and it kind of all meshes together. Again, there's a lot of possibilities with him, but you always need to make sure that he is at least paired with somebody that provides the, or how do they word it exactly? Abnormal state. If you want to see what abnormal states are, one second. You can see right here, abnormal status includes conditions such as vulnerable, attack debuff, chaos, ignition, stun, and unable to launch regular attacks. So basically anything that affects the tiles and not the heroes. So Crimson is definitely going to be a huge buff for Navy. Please, as you guys kind of test, let everybody know kind of what you're seeing and what works best and what works worse. I'll let you know what I end up deciding on probably after server because that's where I get a lot of live testing. I always worry more about PvP than PvE, so testing in real time is a lot harder because then you're blowing units right before battles and things. So being that server Saturday, probably not going to be able to truly test them other than Warzone, which is level 60 units and not 80, so that kind of makes a difference too. And I'm dumb, it's not Warzone, that's level 60, that's Sandtable. I apologize for that. So I will test in Warzone, but those tests don't include all buffs and things like that. So I kind of want to have a live test and where my skills and my buffs are activated and so are the enemies. But I definitely think I'm going to start with the Ray, Layla, Crimson. So I hope this helps everybody. Please remember to like and subscribe if it does, and leave a comment this time. I'm going to try to get the comments up to try to get my video more exposure so we can start testing a lot more. I do want to start testing into the spending area, but to do that we have to get a lot more exposure on these videos. So thank you all for your support, and see ya.